Now, I have always considered my GS1100E to be a street fighter. What it does best is entertain you on the street, especially if there's some other bikes of the era in the area, and you can watch the whole video in 4K. Adjust your device. Today promises to be another great fall day. We're really in a great time of year, and the leaves are changing. Everything is just so nice. Temperature is perfect. The bikes are all running great in this cool weather. Just couldn't be nice. We got chains, new chains on the bikes, new brake pads on some. The bikes are in great shape. I wish I was in good shape. Now, back in the day, of course, being a street fighter, you'd be looking around for somebody else with an equivalent big bore bike, looking for a traffic light or whatever. And that was a great time to be a motorcyclist. A great time to own one of these bikes, especially if you had a collection and you could have one of each. I don't have one of each, but this one really does make me happy. Now, I got to do all my chores here before we get out on the open road. I've got to feed the fish. I get the bike cleaned up, have a couple extra cups of coffee today. It's going to be a long day. Karen has chores for me to do when I get back, but it won't matter. I'm going to be out on the open road and having a great time today. The weather is absolutely perfect, and the fish are as happy as can be. They're well fed, and I guess I could say the same thing about myself. Maybe I'm well fed too. I don't know. Let's get out of here. Now, I think Suzuki had a little heads up on this as far as making a street fighter out of it. Right off the get-go, they knew what they wanted. They wanted great quarter-mile times and comfortable bike to ride on hour after hour. They did a good job of having both. And to be a real street fighter, it's got to be a fun bike to ride, and you want to go through the gears. It's just kind of a simple formula, and I really think Suzuki nailed it right on the head. Now, back in the 80s, it was almost a given. If you were 3 or 4 cars behind a light and another bike was somewhere near there, you'd sneak up in between the cars, get to the front when the light changed, pull a whole shot. And you get, at some point in time, that's exciting for a while, but then you want to move on to bigger and better things. And I did, but some of my friends still enjoy that part of being a hooligan. Another real reason I call this a street fighter, you can sit on a seat upright, cruise around, cruise down the main highway, cruise anywhere, and then take a dive into these twisty roads. And that throttle, that wide torque, this bike is deadly on back roads. Now, younger guys that have only ever experienced modern bikes like an R6 or any of the modern bikes, I guess, and they don't have a feeling for what these bikes are like to ride. They're brutal. They're like I call them the muscle cars of bikes. They're just, it's hard to describe, but it is definitely thrilling. And Joe Padula put it into good words. He's got a BMW touring bike, one of the very latest ones with all the features. And when he got his GS out on the road after years of restoring it, and we went for a ride together, he put it into a really good way of putting it. He said, boy, you get on this bike and it's the wind is in your face and you're right out in the open. You're not hiding behind anything, and you don't have any dashboard to look down and see what's beeping and bopping and if your cell phone and GPS are all working. And he put it into good saying, I guess. And I think of it that way too, that this is really an old school motorcycle. Street fighter is a good word. Hooligan bike is a good word. A lot of good words. But it's old school. It's what motorcycles were before they had all electronic safety features, quick shifters, ABS, all of the things that make modern bikes wonderful. This doesn't have any of them. This is really like a P-51 World War II plane, what it is to a Learjet. And believe me, it's exciting to ride this bike. Now, I knew from the day I bought this bike, and I had it since new, I was going to keep this till the day I die, and I had a chance to get a second one in Philadelphia. Ray helped me out. I'm so glad I got a really good parts bike. Now, you go out on this bike on a hot summer day and that wind is right in your face. There isn't even a fly screen, nothing. It's wind in your face. It's like sitting in a wind tunnel. And I guess that's part of the appeal of any bike that's like a street fighter that has no fairing and no windshield, no wind protection. And over the years, I've used the parts bike, many parts off it, the wheels, the bodywork, the carburetors, the exhaust system. I've used a lot of the parts, and for all practical purposes, I got my money's worth out of it the first time I took a few parts off the bike. And knowing that I have my own parts supply in-house, because parts are getting harder and harder to find, and as time goes by, I know they're going to get even worse. And I hope I'll have them to the day I die. And anybody that rode motorcycles in the 80s knows what a wonderful time it was. Gas was cheap, parts were available, bikes were available. Every manufacturer had a big bore bike. Great time to be a motorcyclist. Now, in my humble collection, I have modern bikes with all the safety features. I have sport bikes with full fairings, but every bike has just a different personality. And that's what makes my humble collection one bike from every 10-year period that I've been involved with motorcycling. Every time I ride, it's a different feel, a different memory that I'm reliving, and every one of these bikes is totally unique. And still, many of my friends still have their GS, and they're just Dallas's is like a brand new bike. Joe Padula's, Aaron's, all of them. And Andy Lee just sold his, but they all, to me, they're iconic street fighters. And as the 80s wore on, I think the bikes got to be more one-dimensional, more focused to do one thing right. But these bikes from the early 80s, they did almost everything right. it's time to get back to the farm and see what Karen's got cooking. We're at the point of the year where she's cooking and making things for our winter, basically soups, almost every day while I'm out riding. Just a beautiful day, absolutely beautiful weather. Boy, you just can't beat the scenery this time of year either. And riding around on a comfortable, iconic, powerful bike that gets good mileage. I don't know if life ever gets any better than that. So it's not only a street fighter, for me it's an evil twin. And by having that parts bike and being able to swap bodywork, I have what I think is like two completely different motorcycles. And yet I only have to do one oil change and one registration, one insurance, and I wind up with two bikes that have a completely different look, and they're called evil twins. And I hope you've enjoyed sharing this video, sharing our ride. Thanks so much for watching.